Welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Today we will be making a matte wood grain glitter peekaboo with an offset. There's a lot going on all at once, but I am super excited to show you this tutorial. First things first, prepped my tumbler, spray painting it the same base color that I am glittering it, which is gold. I used Athena from Peachy Olive Glitter to completely coat my tumbler. This is a chunky gold with a little bit of holographic in it. It is amazing, my favorite gold out there, and I was super excited to match this with wood grain. So as you can see here, I am touching the epoxy with my bare hands. Please, again, do as I say, not as I do. Because it's metallic spray paint, sometimes the epoxy repels from it. So I was just kind of trying to cover up where it was repelling from, so I could get the glitter on quickly before it started repelling some more. So all I did here was just coat the entire tumbler with Athena. Again, this is a chunky glitter, so if you want to get a little bit more full coverage, I would recommend going back in with maybe a fine, super fine glitter to completely coat it, but I didn't mind for that gold base to show, so that wasn't a huge deal for me. With chunky, you could also take some of your parchment paper and fold it up and kind of push it down so it lays a little bit flatter. But what I did was just coat it in epoxy after the flood coat. And in here, I currently am using a CC DIY Ultra Clear Fast Set. It cures in 2 hours. And it's the same thing I used for the flood coat. So once you get full coverage, then you will add on your flood coat. About 45 minutes later, it could be 15 minutes, 45, as long as your glitter is not moving around and it's pretty secure. So here I am adding on my flood coat. Make sure you use your torch to get rid of any of the bubbles, and you can go from there. So after your epoxy has completely cured, you will want to sand it down. I am using a 120 grit sanding block that I bought off of Amazon. You can also find these at your local hardware store. I know that Walmart sells them too, but they're usually low stock where I am from. Once you are done sanding it, you are going to wipe it down with some 91% alcohol to get all those sanded bits off, and add another coat of epoxy just to get it smooth, because this is a peekaboo. Although with the wood grain, the bumps are kind of cool too. So it's really up to you and your preference. Again, don't forget to torch. Get rid of all those micro bubbles. So I bought a file off of Etsy that already had the offset for me. So I will link that in the description below. There are ways to create an offset of an image if you want. This is just the file that I found to make it easier on myself. So I weeded out everything I didn't want. What I did was I wanted about 2 of each leaf on my tumbler. So I made double that, because you're going to end up having to use those same leaves to cover up again when you do the matte. So I just laid out where I wanted all of my vinyl. I didn't lay them all down again. I just laid down 2 of each design that I had. And then you just place them wherever your heart desires. After you lay down all your decals, you are going to spray your tumbler. I used a flat white primer first, and then I went over it again with a flat white. It doesn't have to be flat. Again, it's just what I have on hand. You're going to completely cover it. So fun fact, I thought I was recording the wood grain when I in fact was not. So that's awesome. I will try and post a wood grain tutorial soon so that you can get that. But what I used was actually a 1 inch to 2 inch dry brush, and I took Ranger alcohol ink in the shade Sepia and literally just drew lines with it up and down. And then I took a smaller brush like I'm doing now, which is when I realized I hadn't filmed the entire base of it. I took that and drew extra lines just to give it a little bit more detail. I promise you it's easy to do. At the bottom, I kind of just did a swirl, kind of just covered it. I'm never good at the bottom with wood grain, to be 1000% honest with you. But yes, so this is literally just alcohol ink, super easy. You are going to wait, I don't know, like 15 minutes. It dries pretty quickly. So you're going to wait about 15 minutes for it to completely dry. And with that being said, some people seal their alcohol ink once it's on there. I do not. I don't find it necessary. Some people it is. Sometimes the alcohol ink turns green or yellow under epoxy the moment you put it on. But hey, once your alcohol ink is dry, you are going to take some type of weeding tool to take off the vinyl. This is the best part in my mind. It's a little satisfying to see the glitter underneath. So once you remove all of the vinyl, then we'll move on to the next step. Alrighty, next up, I took the offset that was offered in the same file from Etsy and weeded that out in a gold metallic vinyl. This specific vinyl I got from either 143vinyl.com, which used to be 651vinyl.com, or Standout Vinyl. Standout Vinyl is one of my favorite places to get vinyl from. But I got this, weeded all the excess out, and then proceeded to lay down the offset over the correct shapes. The reason why I chose this file is because it offered an option for the stems, the little branch is type thing within the leaves in it, which I liked that idea going into my vinyl. Here's another thing is what you're not going to see. You should epoxy it before you add the offset. I was being impatient. If you epoxy it first and then add the offset, you're least likely to scratch anything as you're laying down the offset with your transfer tape. So I recommend doing that first and then adding this on. I did not in this video. It's your preference. You can always fix the spots using the small paintbrush and the alcohol ink, but yes, so you'll see here. So here I am laying my offset onto my tumbler. Again, I did not epoxy it first. I recommend epoxying a thin layer before adding this, but hey, that's, your choice. I try and line it up the best I can. It's not always going to be perfect. I know it's not going to be perfect. That's okay with me. My OCD did freak out a little bit, but hey, I was happy with the end result, so it's all good. I use Cricut transfer tape. I like that transfer tape. I know it's expensive. I usually buy it when it's on sale. And I also use a discount code, being the Cricut Access member, whatever it is. So I usually get a large roll of it, and I reuse the tape as much as often. So there's that. So you're just going to do this to all the leaves of the cup. Make sure you're careful. Get it down securely. Press down any bubble so it doesn't come up. And so after I placed this last decal, I realized that it was not where I wanted it. I picked it up with my little Cricut tool. Again, you can find cheaper off-brand tools on Amazon and everywhere else. This is just what I've had since I've started crafting. I just moved it, kind of maneuvered it how I wanted it. But this is why I typically use a transfer tape. This was my mess up one that I first tried to put on there and didn't go my way. So after this, you'll see, you can see in there that I do have scratches. Which was because I did an epoxy. And so I'm just taking my brush and hitting it with the alcohol ink to try and cover up the little scratches that are on there. Got a little bit on there, didn't get it off. But just be careful. It's a quick fix, not a big deal. And once you're done doing that, then you are going to add approximately 2 to 3 layers of final coats of epoxy. So as long as there's nothing more that you want to do to the tumbler besides the matte effect, you will add 2 to 3 more coats. I think I only show 1 coat going on there, but you'll want to do 2 to 3 coats of epoxy before you move on. All right, so here's the thing. You don't have to matte your tumbler. It's not necessary. This looks cool without the matte. I think it looks awesome. Has that cool reddish tone to it with the gold leaves. It is not required. But if you do want to, you can continue watching. So I'm going to take the leftover pieces that I cut out at the same time as I cut out the originals, and I'm going to start placing them the best that I can over top of those original Peekaboos. And once you're done doing that, we will move on to the next step. Alright, so I've done a video on the mat before, but this is it with a Peekaboo. So all my vinyl decals are on there. I'm using Final Sand from DIY Epoxy, which you can find a link for in the description. You're going to want to use steel wool, number $00, or 000. It's basically, you want it fine because you're sanding it. So you're going to go in a circular motion. I ended up going just up and down because it's wood grain. I didn't think it would be a big difference, which it really wasn't. You're going to want to be careful around the vinyl. Another thing is I cut out using 631, which is removable vinyl. The reason why I used removable vinyl on this is because it's less likely to leave a sticky residue. It's not permanent vinyl, which tends to leave a sticky residue. If you use 651 or permanent vinyl, you can use acetone or alcohol. I'm pretty sure alcohol is probably better. I don't know how acetone would react with the matte, so I recommend alcohol. You're going to want to use alcohol to try and get the sticky residue off. 631 vinyl doesn't leave a sticky residue, for me at least. So that's what I recommend. But be careful sanding around that because you don't want to accidentally pull up the vinyl. So with little fine details, like some of the leaf stems, some of those came up, but it wasn't a huge deal. You couldn't really tell that much when you looked at the final product. So you're going to, I think I did three coats of the final sand on this. And that's when I considered it was done. So I just rub it all around, rinse it off, dry it off, take a look at it, do it again. Again, just do it until you have the results that you want. Make sure you get the rim really good too, because you don't want those shiny parts up there with everything else matte. And the bottom as well. So since this is a curved tumbler, just make sure you're getting all those curves so that it's looking matte. So add more final sand as needed. Again, I have the link for that in the description below, and I will also add a link for where I got the steel wool, which you can get from Amazon, but you can also get it at your local hardware store. So like I have an Ace and another hardware store near me that I don't remember the name of that has it there. I'm sure Home Depot or Lowe's has it, but just worth a look. So rinse it off. Also want to make a side note. I was a little bit more conscious this time about leaving the water running. So don't comment. I know I'm trying to be better at it. We live on well water. We don't get charged for running water. So I sometimes don't think about it. So I will be a little bit more conscious about that when I am doing this. But yeah, just watch until the end. Again, final sand is the final layer on your epoxy. So if you add another layer of epoxy, it's going to make your tumbler shiny again. That's, if you want a matte epoxy, a matte finish, then don't epoxy it again. This is the final layer. And with that being said, I've had customers ask, is it safe? So epoxy is safe to drink from. It's FDA compliant because it is fully cured. Epoxy is not safe when it is not fully cured. What I'm using on this is not safe if it is left on there, which is why I wash it off when it's done. This is literally just a tool to help sand it. An easier way than actually doing it the hard way and sanding it a billion times with a billion different grits. Which I've watched videos on. I've always wanted matte tumblers, but I never wanted to do all that work. That was pointless in my mind. I mean, it looks great, but it was just too much work. And I didn't want to overcharge for the amount of work it would take. Versus this doesn't take as long. So, rinse it off again. And I will just let you guys finish watching the rest of the video. And then we will move on to the last step. Alrighty, well, here's me drying it off the best that I can with a dish towel because my paper towels kept leaving marks, but that's it. It is matte. Isn't that cool? I think wood grain looks so cool with the matte effect. And now the last step that you will do is remove that vinyl. Once you remove the vinyl, you will be done. Well, you're going to have to clean your rim and clean the inside of the cup. But after that, then you'll be done. Your product will be ready. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you subscribe. If you guys have an idea of a tumbler you want me to try or want me to show, go ahead and comment below. Make sure you like this video too. And thanks for watching.